Have you ever stopped to wonder what your smallest, most ordinary choices say about you? The way you greet the cashier at the supermarket, the tone of your voice when you answer a friend's message, or even the decision to sit in silence instead of filling the air with meaningless words. These details might seem trivial, yet they quietly reveal more about who you are than the grand declarations you post online or the goals you promise to achieve next year. Dostoevsky, the Russian novelist who dissected the human soul with surgical precision, once suggested that the truth of a person is found not in what they claim, but in how they act when no one is applauding. It's in those silent, unobserved choices that our true selves bleed through. And that idea is both unsettling and liberating. Think about it. Most of us live believing that we are defined by our biggest decisions, the career we choose, the partner we marry, the city we live in. But what if who you truly are is constantly being revealed in the ordinary rhythm of your day? In the coffee you share, in the patience you show, in the temptation you resist, or in the shortcuts you take when you think no one is watching? This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because if our daily choices are mirrors, then maybe the image they reflect is not the one we like to imagine. Maybe that story we tell ourselves, "I'm a kind person, I'm disciplined, I'm honest," begins to crack when measured against the small evidence of real life. That sharp word, that small compromise, that moment of avoidance. But here's the point. Instead of treating this realization as condemnation, what if we saw it as an invitation? An invitation to stop living on autopilot, to stop pretending that only the big choices matter, and to begin seeing each ordinary moment as the sacred soil where our character is being formed. So let me ask you directly, what would your day look like if someone followed you with a camera, recording not the highlights you're proud of, but the hidden gestures you rarely notice? What picture of your soul would emerge? Before we go deeper, pause with me on this thought. If your life is shaped less by the promises you make and more by the choices you repeat daily, then what story are you really writing about yourself? And if this provoked something in you, stay with me until the end, because we are going to uncover how Dostoevsky's insight can radically reshape the way you see your own choices. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe, leave your like, and share in the comments what small choice today revealed something about you. Imagine for a moment that tomorrow, every single choice you make will echo loudly for the rest of your life. Every word you speak, every glance you give, every silence you keep, all of it will be magnified and remembered. Would you live differently? Would you be more intentional, more patient, more courageous, or would the weight of that responsibility paralyze you? Now let's stretch this vision even further. What if, instead of being trapped in the monotony of just another day, you could see each decision as part of a greater mosaic, a masterpiece slowly taking shape? Suddenly, your morning routine is not meaningless, your commute is not wasted, your interactions are not disposable. Each small choice becomes a brushstroke painting the portrait of your character. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us live as if our daily actions are inconsequential, saving our real selves for the grand moments, the job interview, the wedding vow, the public speech. But Dostoevsky whispers otherwise. You are already revealing yourself right now in the quiet choreography of your day. And the question is, are you proud of that revelation? Picture two versions of yourself. In one, you dismiss the stranger asking for help. You scroll through your phone instead of listening to your child. You justify small compromises because it doesn't really matter. In the other, you notice, you pause. You choose the harder but nobler path, even when nobody thanks you. Which version do you want to live into? And more importantly, which version are you actually feeding with today's choices? Because life is not waiting for your big turning point. It is happening in the little things right now. If you could see the compounding effect of your decisions, like interest quietly growing in a hidden account, perhaps you would never call them small again. So let me ask you, what would shift in your life if you started treating every choice, or even the smallest, as sacred ground, as a chance to either betray or embody the person you claim to be? Hold that image in your mind as we continue, because in the next step we're going to challenge one of the most common lies we all believe about our choices. A lie that keeps us blind to the truth Dostoevsky saw so clearly. We often comfort ourselves with the thought that our true self is hidden somewhere deep inside, untouched by our mistakes, separate from our inconsistencies, pure beneath the surface. It's a convenient belief, isn't it? It allows us to dismiss our daily lapses with excuses. That wasn't really me, I was just tired. I didn't mean it that way. My true self is different. But here's the disruption. What if your choices are not masks covering who you are, but precise revelations of who you are becoming? What if there is no hidden, untouched version of you waiting to emerge, but only the lived reality you shape with every yes and no? Dostoevsky forces us to abandon the illusion of separation between intention and action. In The Brothers Karamazov, one of his characters suggests that every gesture carries eternal weight, that even the smallest act of cruelty or kindness reverberates beyond what we can measure. In other words, there is no neutral ground. Your life is either reinforcing a pattern of truth or building a habit of self-betrayal. This perspective shatters the popular idea that someday we will become our best selves, as if character waits patiently for us to finally pay attention. No, character is forged in the furnace of repetition, in the thousands of unnoticed moments. You are already becoming someone, whether you intend to or not. Here is the shocking reality. The self you dream of being does not exist apart from the self you choose to be in practice. That gap between your ideals and your actions, that's not just inconsistency, that's identity. That is who you are today. And this realization can sting, because it confronts us with the truth we often avoid. Our lives are not built by the rare flashes of inspiration, but by the choices we excuse as too small to matter. If you neglect them, they silently sculpt you into someone you may not recognize, or even like. So let me put it plainly. Who you are is not what you hope for, not what you post online, not even what you promise to yourself in your quiet moments. Who you are is what you do, again and again, when no one is watching. And if that unsettles you, good. Because in the discomfort lies the chance to wake up, to reclaim those trivial decisions, and to begin shaping the self that your soul longs to become. Dostoevsky is not alone in this claim. Across centuries, thinkers have warned us that character is forged not in grand declarations, but in the humble theater of daily life. Aristotle, long before Dostoevsky, described virtue as a habit. We do not become just by wishing to be just, but by repeatedly acting justly. Patience, courage, honesty. These are not innate traits waiting to be discovered, but disciplines crafted through countless small decisions. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps, echoed this truth in a setting far harsher than any of us will likely endure. He observed that the men who retained their humanity were not necessarily the strongest or most intelligent, but those who consistently chose, even in suffering, to treat others with dignity. For Frankl, freedom was not about external conditions, but about the choice we make in every moment to rise above selfishness or sink into despair. And even in literature, beyond philosophy and psychology, this idea is everywhere. Tolstoy paints entire novels around the tension between noble ideals and the small daily betrayals that erode them. Think of Anna Karenina's gradual descent, not the product of one catastrophic decision, but of a series of subtle compromises. Dostoevsky himself reminds us that crime never begins with the crime itself, but with the invisible choices that soften the conscience and harden the heart. When we bring all these voices together, the conclusion becomes inescapable. Your life is not defined by isolated milestones, but by a pattern. And that pattern is built choice by choice, habit by habit, often without your awareness. The myth of the true self hidden beneath our actions collapses under the weight of this reality. You are your pattern. You are your rhythm. You are your repetition. And maybe that's why so many of us feel a deep dissonance inside. We speak about who we want to be, but our lives bear witness against us. The grocery list of our actions contradicts the poetry of our ideals. And Dostoevsky, like Frankl, like Aristotle, like Tolstoy, refuses to let us look away. So here's the question. If some of the greatest minds in history agree that your daily choices reveal and even define your truest self, why do we still live as if those choices are trivial? What blindness keeps us from seeing what is right in front of us? Here is the paradox. Most of us underestimate our small choices precisely because they feel invisible. No one praises you for resisting irritation when traffic cuts you off. No one writes you an award when you choose to listen deeply instead of interrupting. No spotlight shines on the nights you quietly prepare tomorrow's work instead of wasting hours in distraction. These decisions pass unnoticed, and because they are unseen, we convince ourselves they don't matter. But the truth is, these invisible actions accumulate silently, layer upon layer, until they shape the architecture of your soul. Neuroscience even confirms this. Habits carve pathways in the brain, strengthening themselves with every repetition. What feels casual today becomes automatic tomorrow, which means that the moment you excuse a small compromise, you are training yourself to excuse the next one. Dostoevsky knew this darkness well. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov doesn't leap directly into murder. His descent begins long before, in tiny justifications, in invisible dialogues where he convinces himself that exceptions can be made. The crime is only the final eruption of 1,000 unseen concessions. And isn't that how it happens with us too? Rarely do we betray ourselves in one dramatic fall. Instead, we slip in unnoticed increments. The dishonesty that began as just a little white lie. The laziness excused as, "I deserve a break." The bitterness fed silently until it becomes our default tone. Slowly, without realizing, we drift far from the person we once hoped to be. Yet the reverse is also true. Small acts of faithfulness, though equally invisible, create a strength of character that becomes unshakable. A simple act of kindness unnoticed by the world strengthens the soul. A single moment of restraint, choosing not to lash out, reinforces inner mastery. The person who disciplines themselves in small ways becomes capable of facing great trials without collapsing. So perhaps the greatest danger in life is not the obvious failures we fear, but the silent erosion we don't see. The rot that begins beneath the surface, slowly hollowing us out. And maybe the greatest hope is also invisible. The quiet, faithful decisions that no one celebrates, yet which build a soul of integrity brick by brick. Which makes me ask you, in the hidden life no one else sees, are you training yourself toward freedom, or are you quietly enslaving yourself through 1,000 small compromises? There are moments when words must be sharp enough to pierce the fog we live in. So let me offer you a few truths, simple but unavoidable. You are not what you dream. You are what you do. Your life is not written in intentions, but in repetitions. Every choice is a vote for the person you are becoming. There is no such thing as a neutral habit. Every action either sharpens your soul or dulls it. The smallest decisions whisper the loudest truths about you. You cannot hide behind your ideals forever. Sooner or later, your character will betray your self-deception. And here is the hardest one. The real you is not some hidden essence untouched by your failures. The real you is revealed every time you choose, especially when no one is watching. These are not comfortable statements, but they cut through the illusions we build to protect ourselves. We like to imagine that our identity is safely stored somewhere in the background, in our values, our personality, our desires. But your values mean nothing if you do not embody them. Your personality is only as noble as the habits you nurture. Your desires are only as pure as the actions you take to honor them. Dostoevsky's genius was to strip away the excuses to show us that even in our most private moments, we are writing our destiny. The lie of self-separation, that I am better than my actions, collapses in his novels. No, you are your actions. You are your habits. You are your choices. So when you look at your life right now, ask yourself, what are your daily actions saying about you? Are they declaring courage or fear, integrity or compromise, compassion or indifference? If this feels heavy, let it be. The weight of truth is the only thing strong enough to anchor us against self-deception. Because until we face it honestly, we cannot begin to change. And that's why this realization is not condemnation. It's revelation. Because once you accept that every small choice matters, you suddenly hold the power to change the pattern. Every moment becomes a chance to re-script the story of your soul. So what will your next choice say about you? Here's a paradox worth wrestling with. We often believe freedom means being unbound by routine, free to decide spontaneously in each moment. Yet true freedom, as both Dostoevsky and Aristotle suggest, is born from discipline, from the repetition of choices that anchor us in what is good. In other words, the paradox is this: freedom is not the absence of habit. It is the presence of the right habits. Think about it. The person who indulges every impulse in the name of freedom eventually finds themselves enslaved to appetite, to distraction, to moods they can't control. On the other hand, the person who chooses the harder path, who disciplines their speech, their desires, their time, slowly builds an inner strength that no external circumstance can shatter. Which one is truly free? Dostoevsky paints this duality in nearly every novel. The man who seeks total autonomy, unshaped by moral law, inevitably destroys himself. Raskolnikov believes his intellect makes him superior, above the moral obligations binding others. But his so-called freedom turns into torment, his conscience dragging him toward confession. Contrast that with characters who choose humility, self-restraint, even suffering. They discover a paradoxical liberation, a peace that arrogance could never grant. And isn't this mirrored in our daily lives? Consider the paradox of discipline. The runner who wakes up early every morning may appear constrained, but that very habit gives her the freedom to climb mountains others cannot. Or consider honesty. The person who refuses to lie even in small things might face harder moments in the short term, but in the long run lives without the chains of secrecy and fear. Here's the unsettling truth. Every choice contains within it a paradoxical freedom or slavery. What feels liberating in the moment, cutting corners, indulging in comfort, avoiding responsibility, often leads to bondage. What feels restrictive, patience, restraint, faithfulness, often leads to freedom. So the question is not, am I free to choose, but what kind of freedom will my choice create? Because not all freedoms are equal. Some make you smaller, others expand your soul. And here's the haunting paradox. The choices that cost you most in the moment are usually the very ones that make you most fully alive. Now let's step into the light. If every choice you make is shaping you, then you hold a quiet but extraordinary power. Imagine what happens when you begin to treat your smallest decisions not as background noise, but as opportunities to become the person you most admire. Suddenly, your daily life stops feeling like wasted time and becomes the very ground where transformation happens. Think about the difference this perspective creates. That moment of choosing patience over irritation. It strengthens not only your relationships but your own peace of mind. That moment of honesty, even when a lie would have been easier, it builds trust and a deeper sense of integrity. That act of kindness to someone who cannot repay you. It expands your heart and reminds you that your life is about more than yourself. The reward is not just distant, waiting in some future where you finally become the best version of yourself. The reward is immediate. You begin to feel congruence between who you want to be and who you actually are. And that alignment brings a rare kind of inner strength, the ability to look at yourself without shame, to carry your soul without flinching. Dostoevsky would say this is not a luxury, but a necessity. To live divided, to constantly betray your ideals with your actions is to invite torment. But to live integrated, to choose daily in a way that matches your highest values, is to taste freedom. And that freedom is not fragile, because it doesn't depend on circumstances. It is yours every time you decide, even in something small, to act with integrity. So here is the promise. If you begin to honor the sacred weight of your daily choices, your life will not just change externally, it will gain depth. You will start to notice beauty in the ordinary, meaning in the overlooked, strength in the unnoticed victories. You will carry within you a quiet dignity that no external success or failure can touch. And isn't that what we are all longing for? Not the fleeting thrill of applause, not the shallow approval of strangers online, but the enduring reward of becoming someone we respect when no one is looking. The invitation is simple. Every choice you make is a doorway. Step through wisely and you will find that even the smallest decision can bring you closer to the life your soul is aching for. To tie this together, let's ground Dostoevsky's insight in a broader framework, one that unites philosophy, psychology, and lived experience. At its core is a simple but profound truth. Identity is not a static possession. It is a process. You are not a fixed object. You are a becoming. And that becoming is sculpted day after day through the rhythm of your choices. Aristotle gives us the philosophical skeleton. Virtue is formed by habit. Every action either reinforces or weakens a disposition, until over time you no longer merely choose patience, you are patient. Character is the sum of countless repetitions. Psychology, particularly habit theory, provides the scientific flesh. James Clear, in his studies on habit formation, echoes what ancient philosophers already knew. Small, repeated behaviors compound over time, building identity far more effectively than grand but inconsistent efforts. Neuroscience shows us that every repetition literally rewires neural pathways, making future choices easier or harder depending on the grooves we've carved. Then comes the existential depth of Viktor Frankl, who insists that even in the most brutal conditions, the essence of freedom remains in the choices we make. Meaning, he says, is not discovered in abstract ideals, but embodied in concrete decisions. Every yes and no is a declaration of who we are. And Dostoevsky? He is the dramatist who takes this framework and breathes fire into it through story. He shows us the tragedy of neglected choices, the spiral of compromise, but also the beauty of redemption when a character reclaims their freedom through even the smallest act of honesty or love. He reminds us that no one is too far gone, because the next choice is always open, always waiting. So when we ask, what do my choices reveal about who I am? We are not asking an abstract question. We are asking the most practical one possible, because in that answer lies the blueprint of your life. You are weaving every day the fabric of your soul. And here is the conceptual anchor. Who you are is not hidden deep inside you, waiting to be discovered. Who you are is revealed and built in the choices you repeat. The question then is not whether you are shaping your character. You are. The real question is, toward what? Are your choices drawing you toward freedom, love, and integrity, or toward fragmentation, despair, and self-deception? So here we are, standing face to face with a truth that Dostoevsky never let his readers escape. Your life is not waiting for tomorrow's grand gesture. It is being written right now in the choices you make today, this hour, even this moment. Each small decision, to listen or to ignore, to speak with kindness or with cruelty, to act with courage or with fear, is already shaping the person you are becoming. And that realization is not meant to crush you, but to awaken you. Because it means the path to transformation is not locked behind some distant breakthrough. It is available here and now, in the quiet wait of your next choice. You do not need to wait for life to hand you a stage. You already have one, the stage of ordinary moments. Think about what that means for you. Every time you resist the temptation to compromise your integrity, you are training your soul and strength. Every time you choose patience in place of anger, you are creating harmony not only with others but within yourself. Every time you act with compassion instead of indifference, you are pushing back the darkness in the world and in your own heart. Dostoevsky believed that even the smallest act of goodness has infinite value. And perhaps that is what this entire reflection comes down to. You matter more than you think, and your choices matter more than you realize. They are not trivial, they are sacred. So let me leave you with this question. If your daily choices are the clearest mirror of your soul, what do you see reflected right now? And more importantly, what will you choose next? I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments one small decision you want to take today that reflects the person you truly want to be. Your words might inspire someone else who is listening quietly, wrestling with the same truths. And if this conversation stirred something inside you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join this community of people seeking depth, integrity, and meaning in a world that often forgets what truly matters. Because in the end, your life is not defined by what you dream, but by what you choose. And your next choice is already waiting.